Hello and welcome to a new Games That Weren't feature where we have something rather special for you today in the shape of a long lost Amstrad CPC demo. And this is of a game called Bushido, or also known as Bushido Warrior. Now this particular game was due for release back in 1988 by Rollersoft and was due for release on a number of platforms including the Atari ST, Commodore Amiga, PC, the Amstrad itself, ZX Spectrum and also the Commodore 64. And it was the Commodore 64 edition that we'd spent many years trying to search for, but unfortunately code has been lost over the years and it seems very unlikely we'll find that version, sadly. However, the developer of that Commodore 64 edition, Patricia Curtis, flagged up that there was a number of screenshots within a French magazine that they recall finding. So digging out the scans, we took a look, and the screenshots you can see here are for the Atari ST edition, which we believe was the lead edition of the game. Now, the developers were the very same developers as those who'd done the ST version of Gauntlet, so we believe that this was built on top of the same engine and was just a reskin job. However, this new design was then picked up by a number of other development teams to be then converted to different platforms, including the 8-bits. So Patricia would work with Stephen Hall on the Commodore 64 edition, just independently. And then also Saucer Software House were handed the conversion duties for the ZX Spectrum and the Amstrad CPC. Now, it was the ZX Spectrum programmer who recently got in touch with us and kind of just let us know that they had worked on the ZX edition, but also that Laurie Sinnett had worked on the Amstrad CPC edition. So out of interest, I decided to kind of trawl through my emails just to see if there was kind of, if I'd had any previous contact with Dave, because I recognised the name and I just wondered if I'd, what it was that I'd spoken to him in the past. And it was by doing this that something rather interesting came up in my emails and something that I'd missed back in the day. So back in 2011, the Mega Twins discs were found. A number of Amstrad 3-inch discs or ZX Spectrum 3-inch discs were found at a boot fair by David Powell. And it was quite a big thing and a massive finding. And eventually the discs were handed over to Steve Brown of the TZX Vault to back up. So we ended up with this amazing recovery of the Amstrad CPC and the ZX Spectrum version of Mega Twins. And this is the ZX version here that you can see. So we've got a page on this on the website if you're not familiar with this story already. But basically what I found was in an old email from Martin Carroll, the ex-editor of Retro Gamer, and now works as a staff writer. Back in 2011, he got in touch just to kind of flag up that within the auction, there was also a disc labelled Bushido, which is very likely to do with Bushido Warrior. And I'd completely missed this because at the time I wasn't really covering the ZX Spectrum or Amstrad version. I thought it was kind of cool that there was this other disc in there, and I just assumed that over time the preview would probably come to light. But I'd completely forgotten about it when covering the Atari ST edition of Bushido and all the other different versions. So I quickly got in touch with David Powell, who bought the original discs, and he explained that all of the discs were handed over to Steve Brown to digitally preserve, and apparently all of these were done. So getting in touch with Steve, he confirmed that Bushido was indeed within his possession, and he had also backed it up. And as we'll see in a moment, there's also a little bonus on there as well. But essentially, after the discs were handed over to us, Steve wasn't quite sure what was on the discs. He felt that the discs were corrupted when he tried to load them up in Disk Manager, and he wasn't quite sure what was on there. So I took a look and started having a little fiddle around with the contents. And within WinApe, after getting the right Amstrad machine, like a standard Amstrad set up in the emulator, we managed to get it running. And here it is. This is Bushido on the Amstrad CPC, and it's relatively advanced. It's not got any sound at the moment, but it is playable, and you can pick up keys and you can go through various exits, as you'll see in a moment. So this particular screen here hasn't got much going on at all, so we think this must be some kind of dojo or big start area where you kind of get familiar with the controls. You go through an exit and then you can start seeing some various enemies that are about to try and attack you, and also a number of keys you can pick up. But rather than just having levels, it seems to be that you've got this kind of open world plan where you can go for these different exits and go to different areas of this rather large map. So having a bit more freedom compared to the likes of Gauntlet. So I'm not sure what a lot of these objects are. I'm sure over time, as more of us get to play the demo, these will come to light. But you can fire little kind of stars at enemies, and you can also, if you get stuck, if you move around and wiggle the joystick a little bit, then you have this like blades that you can attack the enemies with, which is quite handy if you kind of get pinned into a corner. And it seems to be more effective than the stars. So there isn't really any points or anything else at the moment. It's mostly just a case of collecting keys and going through the exits. So it's fairly advanced, but probably would say maybe about 70% complete. That might be being a little bit generous, we're not sure. But it seems pretty big. There's quite a lot to explore, and it's a lot larger than I originally thought. At first, I thought it was just like a standard screen and maybe one or two other little maps you could explore. But actually, just poking around, I discovered that various different blocks were actual exits, and you could go into some buildings like you can see here, and start doing various bits and pieces. There might be a little bit more to it. There might be some more interactions that you can do. If you do learn anything more about this preview and anything that if you find anything else in there, for instance, then please let us know. But it's a lovely curiosity just to find, and it's great to see something of the game after so many years. And fingers crossed, over time, we may even get to find something of the ZX Spectrum version. Steve Brown has mentioned that there are a number of other discs that don't have labels on, so there is potential that there could be a ZX Spectrum version of the game still on there, which would be great for Dave Simmons, who sadly has lost anything of his code. So yeah, we're not entirely sure how this got into the possession of like the ex-Titex or US Gold developer, whoever it was who originally had the discs. We think the game was due also was kind of to be released not just through Aerolosoft but also through US Gold and through Adventuresoft. That seems to be the suggestion for the Atari ST edition. So that would explain possibly how a preview got into the hands of someone at US Gold. But yeah, this is pretty much it in terms of that game. So feel free to download it and have a play and just enjoy, really. And if you do find anything interesting in the demo, then please do get in touch and let us know, and we'll update the page and also give you a credit. But in addition to this, there was also a little bonus on the disc as well, which came in the shape of Heroes of the Lance. So just a very early build with some of the panels not quite coloured in and not really much in the way of interaction. But it was kind of interesting that this was found on the same disc. We're not entirely sure why it's bundled on it. Maybe it's just kind of stored on there to save space on the disc and just keep everything in one place. When I checked with Dave Simmons, he confirmed that they'd had no actual involvement on this game as part of Saucer Software House. He was aware of all the games that had been worked on, so we just assumed that someone at US Gold had been given a preview and they just saved it onto the same disc as Bushido. So yeah, that's also on the disc as well, so you can check that out just as an additional bonus. And that's it. So just wanted to say a huge thank you to the following people. So in particular, a huge thank you to Steve Brown, who had backed up the discs many moons ago and kindly dug out the discs, and also a recent photo to show the disc as well. Also to Martin Cowell, who had first flagged up to me many moons ago about there being either a Spectrum or an Amstrad version of the game to find, and I apologise that it's taken so long to kind of get back to this and try and bring it to light. Also to Patricia Curtis for all her help over the years with Bushido and trying to shed some more light, and also finding the ST screenshots. Hopefully someday we'll manage to find something of that version, maybe even Patricia's C64 version too. And also to Dave Simmons, who got in touch and kind of triggered this bizarre sort of search and recovery over the last couple of days or so. Yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll have more for you very soon.